Well, this one has caught me by surprise. It's now 20 years since Seattle grunge band Nirvana released their landmark album, Nevermind.
It was a soundtrack for a generation and prompted a cultural shift for the music industry. In just a moment, we'll be speaking to Triple J Mornings presenter Zan Rowe. But first, let's take a listen to a rare live performance by Nirvana. You awake yet? It certainly woke me up. For more, we're joined now by Triple J Mornings presenter Zan Rowe from Sydney. Zan, good morning. Now,
good morning, Michael.
How important was that album, not just for Nirvana, but as you say, the music industry at the time?
Well, as you say, it's quite early in the morning, but I was still tapping my feet right then to that song. A real game changer, and it's hard to believe that it has been 20 years since Nevermind was released. And also hard to believe that there was a time when indie music or alternative music like that didn't exist in the charts. This was the first record to really bring that kind of underground sound into the mainstream. It actually knocked Michael Jackson's Dangerous off the #1 position in the States when it was released. And it was largely due to that big single, Smells Like Teen Spirit, which really broke through this young band from Seattle who no one had really heard of before into the mainstream, and the rest is history, as you say.
And there are special commemorations, including the showing of that concert film to mark the 20th anniversary.
Yeah, of course, as with all big anniversaries, there's going to be a deluxe reissue of this album with a whole bunch of extras. But the exciting thing is that as Nirvana were only around for a few years before Kurt Cobain sadly took his own life, there's very little archival material of this band, and there's only one known live recording of a full show of the band, really at their peak, captured in their hometown of Seattle at a theatre called the Paramount. And I think it was within days of the release of this record, so an incredible amount of excitement, an incredible amount of hometown pride. And live at the Paramount, screening for the first time in East Coast cities around Australia or across Australia at the same time next Friday, the 23rd of September, to mark this anniversary. So at 9 p.m, I believe in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, they're going to be showing this film of Nirvana live at the Paramount, so we can all cast our minds back, or indeed for anybody who wasn't even alive then, to understand just what the excitement was around this band.
Cast our minds and perhaps bang our heads in unison.
Yeah.
I've always wondered, Zane, how big Nirvana could have become if Kurt Cobain didn't commit suicide.
It's always a hard question, isn't it? I mean, a lot of bands, I think, become a lot bigger after, sadly, a member passes away. I think it's one of those things that you'll never know. One of the things that set Nirvana apart from other bands of the time, and particularly in 1991, was that they really loved that heavier kind of grungy sound. Grunge was the sound of the 90s, but they also really loved the melody of bands like the Pixies, and even more kind of cheesy 70s bands. They really loved the melodic structure of great pop songs. So they really wanted to take away some of the fuzzy guitar and let melody shine. Kurt Cobain was a great songwriter, and I think would have had many more great records in him had he been with us still today.
Now, let's jump forward 20 years. You've been casting your critical eye over some of the best Australian up-and-coming acts at a recent festival. What in fact has caught your interest here?
Well, Big Sound in Brisbane was a festival that ran late last week and is probably the biggest music industry conference in Australia, where around 80 bands play over 8 venues over 2 nights. So I was running around a bit manic trying to capture all of them. And there were a lot of really great young Australian bands. Emma Louise, a 19-year-old singer from Cairns, who's just moved to Brisbane, is making a lot of waves. If you like sounds like Missy Higgins and Angus and Julia Stone, I have a feeling she's going to be one of those kind of artists, and has actually remained unsigned in Australia, but last week during Big Sound managed to announce that she's signed to a label in Germany, of all places. Apparently she's very big in the Netherlands. So she's one to watch as well. Lanny Lane as well, a Sydney singer who's in her mid-20s, sings a lot of rockabilly and has been recording with Jack White of the White Stripes, is making a lot of waves and getting a lot of people's attention with her kind of rockabilly style and very sassy curled hair. And another band out of Melbourne is worth watching as well, Husky, who you may not know is actually the son of Michael Gawenda, former editor of The Age. I know, a regular guest on ABC News Breakfast. Well, his son, Husky, that's actually his name, has a band called Husky.
Really?
And a lot of people were in the room, packed in, watching them. A lot of label people watching them with very eager eyes. And they'll have a record out next month, so some really beautiful folk music coming out of Melbourne as well.
All these bands, all these singers, so little time. Just a viewer has tweeted a very interesting question, Zan. You recall the Nevermind Nirvana album with the baby in the pool, one of the most iconic album images of all time. What's happened to the baby? Do we know? He or she would be 21 or so now.
Yeah, he's still around. I think a few years ago he recreated, for better or worse, that album cover as a teenage boy.
Oh no!
I think there was still some sort of censorship going on with certain parts of his body, but he's still around. He's having a great time, and I mean, what an image to capture. I think that idea came to Kurt on a whim, and a few people in his record label sort of naysayed it, but he went, "Come on, it's a baby in a pool, you know, don't be so uptight." But he seems to have taken it and run with it, having posed and recreated that photo about 4 years ago. You can find it online if you're really keen to see.
I don't think I'll be looking it up. But anyway, thanks for placing the thought in my mind at 8 o'clock this morning. Zan Rowe from Triple J Mornings, thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael.